used to let them call their names. They never let poor Rudolph join any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, come on, Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you ride my sleigh tonight? Then all the reindeers loved him, and they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you go down in history forever, you go down in history.
I like this.
History forever, you go down in history.
Alright, we're about to get started here in a minute. Giving people a few seconds to get on. I did start a little bit late. I do apologize for that. And I haven't been coming on regularly. That's been because we've been redoing the studio, and y'all get to see those changes here very shortly. But tonight we have an interesting segment. We're gonna go through some of the things that I think people aren't necessarily paying attention to that they definitely should. For those that are tuned in, you're watching Politics is War, and I'm your host, B. Ellington. What's going on, chat? What's going on, chat? Let's go ahead and get started. So we had an interesting week. A lot transpired, right? From the shutdown to food stamps, being on, being off, being on again. Government being on, being closed, being open again. It's a lot of confusion going on. And I think a lot of that confusion is intentional, as we've been talking about. So what is everybody talking about right now? The Epstein's files. I'm not going to really get too deep into the Epstein's files, but I do want to start with this, because I think this is interesting when we talk about ideology, democracy, and what, is happening.
I did just ask the Department of Justice if, in fact, Attorney General Pam Bondi will investigate Bill Clinton as directed by this current President of the United States. I think this post is important in two different contexts. Number one, the President is suggesting that this should be a Democratic problem, this being Jeffrey Epstein, citing Larry Summers, who is also named.
Now, again, not getting too deep into the Epstein files, but the ideology and the rule of law and what we're allowing to become normal. And if what we allow to become normal becomes normal, then the rule of law no longer exists. So, again, with the Epstein's file, we see that the Trump administration has been blocking the complete release. We see that the Democratic Party has been pushing, leaking, and doing everything that they can to get the emails out. But are the revelations in the emails actually anything new? Has it been a question about Trump's association with Epstein, even though we've seen pictures of Trump and Epstein's for years? Is it a new revelation when we see rumors and pictures of females in the current Trump administration, Pam Bondi being one, being associated with him? That's nothing new. So why is it being released right now? Why is it the uproar right after food stamps, EBT is reopened, is we right back on the Epstein's file?
In those direct email correspondence on Tuesday between him and Jeffrey Epstein, suggesting that women had a lesser IQ than men, for instance, but also talking about women. This is a moment, though, where the president seems to be acknowledging that the American public may not have all of the documents relevant.
Now it's about to get ugly, because we see the Trump administration pushing back, saying that they want to release files and information. Let me make sure I get it to the right clip. Information on the Clintons and some of our former other presidents that's been associated with Epstein. There's been rumors about Epstein being a spy. So again, none of this is new. But the rule of law is in question. And it's in question because if it's okay to go after Democratic elected partisan officials that have ties to Epstein, why is it not copacetic to go after Republicans who have that same tie? Now, if it's about the rule of law and we're comfortable with the rule of law being applied equally, then there should be no question about who's on which party being exposed. Now, if the rule of law is subject to be singularly targeted, then we all should be scared, and we should be scared not because of partisan politics, but we should be scared because of the new positioning of the rule of law being group only. And if you're not associated with the group, then you don't benefit off the law. Now, we can talk about black folks never adequately benefiting off the rule of law in America, and that's true. We could talk about the rule of law being group law in America, and yes, that has been true for the so-called minority. But what we're seeing now is a overt change in the structures, and that makes it dangerous for the so-called minority who's already been ostracized.
This under the Biden administration and under this Department of Justice have maintained that they are not releasing documents so as to protect individuals who they have been unable to prove engage in unlawful activities. And yet what we have heard from victims and their lawyers who have spoken out is that they want a full reckoning, that this is such a large case that the names of individuals, even if it is embarrassing and perhaps not criminal in nature, that their names should be released. So now the current president of the United States, who has blocked through his Department of Justice the release of these files so as to suggestively protect individuals that did not engage in crime.
Now, I wonder what Puffy is feeling right now with the names of individuals being protected by the president. And I'm not suggesting that victims of sexual abuse be publicized just for the sake of publicizing them. But if we see that the president administration is targeting former presidents and their administrations because of their selectoral party, and not targeting members of his own party or fully releasing them in a transparent fashion, then the rule of law will seemingly only exist to those underneath the administration or the administration's authority, which would definitely make America or authoritarianship like we read last week. Let's see what the president's talking about. I don't think this is the clip that I want to hit yet. I'll make sure I get them in order.
I think they've done it. It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it. And if you don't terminate the filibuster, you'll be in bad shape. We won't pass any legislation. There'll be no legislation passed for 3.25 years, so it's a long time. But when they can't do an extension,
so while Americans is talking about the Epstein's files, and the administration is talking about the Epstein's files too, the legislative package and the legislative underlining push is to get rid of what? The filibuster. And nobody's paying attention to that. The filibuster is what caused this shutdown, right? And I don't agree with the way that the Democrats utilize the filibuster. I don't agree with the way that I've seen the filibuster utilized in the state of Missouri in the past. But I do agree with the tool of the filibuster. For those that don't understand what a filibuster is or what a filibuster should be, a filibuster should be senators taking the floor, arguing point for point and fact for fact on legislation. What we've seen as of years is senators getting on the floor talking about whatever. What I've seen personally in the state of Missouri is senators getting on the floor reading shit that has nothing to do with the legislation at all, which makes the filibuster non-functional. But to get rid of the filibuster and then to interject term limits guarantees that you have no institutional government anymore. But let's finish listening to the president.
and I think they've done an extension every single time they've ever been asked forever. this is the first time they haven't done an extension. Extensions are supposed to be easy, but if they won't do an extension, they won't do any bill, even a simple bill. And we should do our own bills. We should get out, we should do our own bills. We should open up, we should start tonight with the country's open, congratulations. Then we should pass voter ID. We should pass no mail-in voting. We should pass all the things that we want to pass to make our elections secure and safe, because California is a disaster.
Now there goes the bouncing ball again, talking about the 2026 elections and making them safe with voter ID on top of eliminating the filibuster so we can streamline government. All while, and I don't know this dude, I don't want to call him an asshole, but the clip makes him look asinine.
Day for women.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is announcing a plan to redo the safety labels on the outside of hormone therapy. Let's watch.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Always an honor.
Before I get into the clip, I don't really have too much to say about the safety labels, but the underlying concurrent rule of law is being easily commingled. And watch his comments and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Secretary Chavez Dreamer, thank you for being here. Madam Second Lady, Mrs. Vance, thank you for supporting this endeavor. All my colleagues at the FDA, my colleagues at HHS, this is a historic day for women in the United States.
Right.
The Women's Health Initiative study was the largest study ever done in U.S. history, a $1 billion study at the time. And you just heard how that study was misrepresented and created a fear machine that lingers to this day. Ask your doctor. But what you may not know is that there was an incredible backstory. The headline that hormone replacement therapy causes breast cancer was released to the media before the scientific data was released to the public.
And I'm gonna cut
the first 3 years. They got it perfectly backwards. Like the groupthink
to hear.
Those words were so prophetic. Look at where we are today. What he predicted is exactly what happened. The fear machine took on a life of its own. Medical groupthink took seat. Just like the medical groupthink that told us opioids were not addictive for 15 years. Like the medical groupthink that said...
Now, I'm not knocking his speaking skills because he's messing up. And I watched the clip several times. When you watch him and you listen to him, this doesn't seem like medical only. It seems more like partisan medical co-opting, which again is extremely dangerous. And I've never trusted the medical field. But when you have clear penalizations of people that haven't received paychecks.
I'm concerned about those controllers. I'm concerned about their dedication. I'm concerned about their patriotism. And so we haven't made a decision, but we are going to look at those controllers who continually made the decision not to show up for work. And again, we have to look at the data.
Now, since when did your patriotism get called in for not showing up to work when you're not getting paid? When did patriotism become an employment prerequisites? Mess that word up, which I know what I'm trying to say. Prerequisites to keeping a job. And I get it. You don't want people in the air controlling compound not to be there. But this...
I'm concerned about those controllers. I'm concerned about their dedication. I'm concerned about their patriotism. And so we haven't made a decision, but...
Seems like it's following a theme that we're seeing. It seems like from the medical field to the administration to the Department of Justice, we're seeing the same concurrent underlying
You know what it does is it really puts the country at jeopardy. People that need it have to get it. I'm all for it. But people that are able-bodied can do a job, they leave their job because they figure they can pick this up, it's easier. That's not the purpose of it. We can reform.
You're watching reforms happen in front of you, and you think it's a game. You're watching massive structural changes from the trusting of law enforcement. Can you tell the difference between which one is a kidnapper and which one is an ICE agent? And I say kidnapper because there's been a few stories as of lately with people running up in on people dressed up as ICE agents, committing crimes, horrendous crimes. It hasn't been publicized as much as the protests, but it's happening.
Not too long ago, claiming he had no idea that his one-time best friend was a notorious pedophile. No idea at all. Of course, even back then, his denial was pretty hard to believe. But now, we have the receipts. As Epstein said of Trump in 2019, quote, "Of course he knew about the girls. Of course he knew." That's just one of the emails in a massive trove of 23,000 documents obtained from the Epstein estate and released today by Democrats on the House.
23,000 documents. And y'all think y'all getting breaking news? Really? 23,000 documents. And you think the Epstein files is breaking news? You think somebody that has been around for years on years with all top elected officials is not known? You think the fact that his accomplice got let out by the Trump administration would have been a bigger story and a bigger issue because she's living and a direct witness and accomplice, right? But we're stuck on the same cycle.
The rule of law is so deeply just. Mark Wolf, a Reagan-appointed federal judge, is resigning after.
This is probably the most important thing that has happened this week, and nobody's talking about it because everybody's talking about the Epstein file. We have a federal judge, Reagan appointed. That means, he's a pure Republican, resigning. Why? Is he resigning because he doesn't like his job? Or is he resigning because he has a deep understanding of what is to happen or what has to happen? And for those that have ears, they will understand what he's saying. And we're going to skip through his as it goes, just so we don't have to worry about copyrights. We're going to play the majority of this because this is what I'm talking about when I talk about the rule of law.
After 4 decades on the bench, and he's sounding the alarm. In an essay published by The Atlantic this week, he wrote, quote, "The White House's assault on the rule of law is so deeply disturbing to me that I feel compelled to speak out. Silence for me is now intolerable." Judge Wolf shared additional context and more of his concerns when I spoke with him earlier today. Judge Wolf, welcome to the NewsHour. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and with some of the American people.
I should say you have spent 50 years with the Department of Justice and on the bench. You have seen a lot of presidents come and go. What is so worrying about this moment and this president that made you want to speak out?
Well, I think this president is unique and uniquely dangerous. When a new president is elected, he or she is entitled to set priorities for the Department of Justice. But we have an ideal that's crucial to me and many others of equal justice under law. And in this president...
I'm going to stop and go back slightly because equal justice underneath the law is what y'all need to be paying attention to. When you have a federal judge, and I don't know this cat, I haven't looked at his ruling, but I do understand his sentiment, that resigns for this. And he has some cold words in here too for those that have ears.
But we have an ideal that's crucial to me and many others of equal justice under law. And this president repeatedly, overtly directs the Department of Justice to prosecute his perceived political enemies at the same time that the Department of Justice is not investigating possible corruption by people close to the president and people who are doing things to prop.
Now, people joke all the time about Hitler and Nazis and all this other shit. But you living through history right now, and I don't care, again, what party persuasion you're with, how can you be complacent in following laws that currently don't count? How? How can you be complacent and wear partisanship and talk about 2026 election when currently right now you're living under siege?
Profit the president and his family. So that's utterly inconsistent with, as I said, this fundamental principle of equal justice under law, to which I've dedicated my professional life.
I'll give you another example, and this is one I had issues with, and I used to argue this. So if I'm a police officer, and I kick in a dope house, and I take the dope off the table, and I shoot everybody in there. Well, no, I ain't gonna shoot everybody because that's gonna change the scenario. I take the dope off the table, and I leave out. Is that robbery, breaking and entering? Before I answer that, let's say I'm not a police officer, and I kick in the spot, and it's dope on the table, and I take the dope off the table, and I run out. Is that breaking and entering? Is that robbery? Well, if I'm not a police officer, yes, it's breaking and entering, robbery, and probably a few other charges. If I'm a police officer, that can actually be opportunistic theft. Right? That's the law. So when we talk about equal application underneath the law, I'll give you another example. If a man is 30, and I got to be careful with this because they're changing the laws. They're changing the laws, I believe, to where you could be 14. So I'm gonna go all the way down just because, you know, the shit y'all letting happen. So let's say you got a man that's 30, and he's messing with a girl that's 13. That man that's 30, he's gonna go to jail, right? Yeah, because that child is 13. Well, let's change that. Let's say that child is 13 commits a crime against somebody that's 30. Who goes to jail in that situation? That child does, but the mental capacity isn't there. So equal application underneath the law is extremely important, and we already have loopholes in there. But when you have administration that selectively utilizes governmental departments to target people selectively underneath the law, and you don't do anything about it, you're supporting a dictatorship. You're paying taxes to a dictatorship, right?
For 50 years, and it's personal to me. It's deeply disturbing.
So from your time in the Department of Justice during Watergate, you've seen presidents push the limits of power. You've also seen the guardrail.
Watch this one. This is interesting when he starts talking about Watergate, not because of Richard Nixon, but because of what actually happened and what was expected and the expectation.
Well, I'm worried in part because I think all of the abuse that's been showered on the courts and the judges is causing people to lose confidence in the integrity and the impartiality of the judicial process. When the Supreme Court ordered Richard Nixon to turn over the tapes he made secretly in the Oval Office that had incriminating information about him and his close colleagues, he understood that he had to obey that order because the American people would not tolerate disobedience, and he would have been impeached and removed. I'm not sure, I'm not confident that that would occur today.
Now, he's being nice by saying he's not sure, but it hasn't happened. We've seen ruling after ruling after ruling not followed. We've seen, I just used the EBT issue. And I don't necessarily agree with the judges either, because you do have separation of the judicial branch and the legislative branch, right? The executive branch is doing some weird shit, but the legislative branch and the judicial branch should be separated. So when they actually gave the ruling to pay, I was curious of how that was actually going to happen. But anyway, you had a president that objected to that several times. Why? Why? Is it leverage? Is it political gamesmanship? Or is it exactly what they've been telling us it is, a reconstruction of American governance? And that's by Bannon and Trump's agenda.
Because when judges, like my colleagues, rule against the president, he says that they're corrupt and they should be impeached. And the judges are not in a position to respond except by continuing to do their work with integrity and impartially. But I'm afraid that that's not a message that's getting to the American people.
From your conversations with your fellow judges, do others share these concerns? How widely held is this concern?
The judges work hard. The criticism from the president, I believe, doesn't influence the way any cases are being decided by any judge that I know. They do their work and hope it speaks for itself. But it is disturbing to be called crooked, not because it hurts your feelings, but because when that doesn't get answered, many people might think you really are crooked. And indeed, the president's vitriolic comments have coincided with threats of harm, death threats, among others, to many federal judges. And people are genuinely concerned to judge it.
And I also call politics American theater, right? And I suggest people go pull up this interview. I'm gonna go to the very end of the interview. I suggest people pull up this interview and watch it. Again, this is Judge Wolf, and he's talking about his time on the bench, why he resigned.
If they want to have life, liberty, and the court orders are disobeyed, then the president has absolute power. Judges don't have armies to enforce their orders. They rely on a responsible media report that it appears that many of them are not being obeyed or properly obeyed. And basically, democracy is the rule of law. And if court orders are disobeyed, then the president has absolute power. Judges...
And that's what it is. There is no standing army to stop the madness that we're seeing happening. The only standing army that we will have is the people. The only standing army of liberation would be those individuals that sit at home and further to invest in the country that is disinvested in them. Right? And it's funny that we've been having messages since the 40s.
You got smallpox or something?
We don't like his religion.
His religion?
Look, mister, he's a dirt...
Now, hold on. I see what you mean. You must be a bunch of those Nazi werewolves I've been reading about.
Mister, are you screwy?
Not me, I'm an American.
Well, what do you think we are?
I'm just saying, shit's getting real. And it's getting real because people are abstaining and paying attention only to the bouncing balls. Only. Nothing. Where's it at? I'm actually looking for one right now that I should have had up.
All right, back to that breaking news. California Congressman Eric Swalwell, now the fourth Democratic official
to face mortgage fraud allegations, according to new reporting from NBC News. President Trump's top housing official, Bill Pulte, reportedly referred Swalwell, again according to NBC News, to the Justice Department for a possible...
He's the fourth one, mortgage fraud. Why did I pull him up? I pulled him up because a few weeks ago, and I erased some of the videos, but I still have this one. A few weeks ago, we actually used one of his clips. And it's interesting that when he was doing this stuff, and I got another one in here too. Let me get all the way down to the bottom. I got another one in there too, but I'm not going to look for that one. Right here. It's funny that after he's been making noise...
Question. Did you tell the Attorney General that the President's name is in the Epstein files?
During many conversations that the Attorney General and I have had on the matter of Epstein, we have reviewed.
The question is simple. Did you tell the Attorney General that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files? Yes or no?
Why don't you try spelling it out?
Yes or no? Director.
Use the alphabet.
Yes or no?
No? A, B, C?
Director, it sounds like you don't want...
I actually like both of those, man. I like both of those transactions. But either it's a coincidence that shortly after he's been going in and publicly criticizing the president, publicly asking for the Epstein's files, publicly talking about the crypto investments, that all of a sudden he has mortgage fraud off of a DC property. And I don't know what the DC property is, but I'm guessing, if I had to guess, it's probably like a house or apartment or something like that he's written out there. But who knows? It could be anything, right? Where's the other one at? It could be anything.
Why not just urge all the Republicans to vote for this massive Connor bill on the Epstein files next week? Put on all the files, let the American public judge for themselves.
What I was opposed to is the reckless disregard that was used in drafting the discharge petition. And we've been over this many times, but it was not drafted in such a way that it would adequately protect innocent victims. We have a responsibility to do that. There's as many as 1,000 women, by some estimates, of people who have been victimized because of the sex trafficking and Epstein and all these horrendous, heinous crimes, and we can't have them subjected to any further harm. So we wanted to make sure that they were properly, those names are properly redacted out of the files. But
that's a lot of victims. That's a lot of victims. To say that you're protecting, when most of them were saying that they want the files to be released. But again, the files being released aren't what people should be concerned about. This is from 2 years ago, right? I don't think America is ready for this level of engagement. For those that can't see, I don't need to, for those that can't see, that's manure. And I'm not suggesting that you go to the Capitol and you spray manure with tires. I'm not suggesting that you do that at all, because it's probably, some type of felony. But what I'm suggesting is that in a country that is not as free as America, you have people that's willing to go to the extreme, to get their voice heard. In America, you have people willing to sit at home and rationalize the government playing with them. $5 billion, $9 billion for food insovereignty. And I'm talking about the EBT again. Government shut down 45 days. 40-something days. Air controllers getting targeted for taking off, even though they wasn't getting paid. And I ain't talked about none of the protests and none of the other good stuff. We didn't even hit that. We're not hitting that tonight.
Leader Thune, Speaker Johnson, if you were watching this, American lives are not a political game. 42.
I wish that both parties was actually taking that sentiment true, because that's not what's happening. We have both parties taking Americans for games, but Americans are taking themselves for games too. So I suggest that if you're watching this and you're paying attention to what's happening, pay attention to the filibuster coming. Pay attention to the term limits that are coming. Pay attention to the next couple of months with the crypto fluctuation. Because I believe all of this is probably a snare and trap. And I could be wrong. We'll keep going through videos and seeing if they, align. So far, they seem like they all align. So far, from every department that we're seeing currently right now, the message and the mantra is saying, your patriotism is in danger if you don't adhere.
The Democrats will do this, so if the Democrats are going to do it, I'm saying Republicans should do it before they get a chance. It's very simple. And if we do it, we will never lose the midterms, and we will never lose the general election, because we will have produced so many different things for our people, for the country, that it would be impossible to lose an election. The Democrats
I love the way they don't hide it. I love the way they put their plan out there. They tell you what they own, and then they do it. The problem is people hearing Democrat, Republican. That's not what this is about, people. It's not what it's about. You already got Bannon, I'm looking for him right now, that just came out recently and talked about what they're going to have to do if they lose the 2026 midterms. And it didn't sound like they was going to re-strategize. That's not the clip. It didn't sound like they was going to re-strategize. But I can end on that one. This is not the one I'm looking for. I'll play the newest one on the next segment. But I will end with him.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28. Trump is going to be president in 28. And people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd?
Again, man, y'all watch the Politics is War. We will start doing the local segments too. We have a lot of stuff coming up, man. We have elections coming up soon. Looking forward to those. City council, mayoral elections. We have congressional elections coming up soon. Looking forward to those. Session starts the General Assembly. So we should have pre-filing bills coming up in December. We'll start hitting those hot topics. 18th and Vine has been on fire a lot lately. I find comments funny from people when they talking and oh man, it's burning. I can't believe it's burning. How many times has that shit been caught on fire since the city gave millions of dollars? How many times has that shit caught on fire since the city gave money to rehab 18th and Vine? And I'm not talking about the development deal. Development deal is different. Development deal's probably got a lot to do with this, but there was money given to 18th and Vine. I mean, why keep saying 18th and Vine? I'm talking about Parade Park. There was money given to Parade Park, and the shit caught on fire. There's money given, the shit caught on fire first, then there was money given to Parade Park. Right? Fix some of the roofs, take care of some of the trash. Shit keeps catching on fire. Developers have it. How does the shit keep catching on fire? We're going to talk about that one. We're going to talk about Parade Park and the hotel and the garage. Look forward to it. Stay tuned.